It goes without saying that biotechnology has provided my home state of South Dakota and its #1 industry, agriculture, with dramatic yield increases, drought-tolerant crops, sustainability, and economic benefits that far exceed expectations from 10 or 20 years ago. Farmers in South Dakota and across the United States take great pride not only in the amount of the crops that they produce, the number of people they feed, but most importantly in the safety of the food supply they provide, not only for the United States and global populations, but also for their own families. Now, based on testimony that's provided and going to be provided at today's hearing, I am greatly concerned that just like many other areas of regulatory overreach, future regulation of our biotech crops, especially regarding the approval process, could become much more cumbersome and complicated and send the wrong message to our trading partners overseas, which could be very detrimental to my home state as it depends heavily on export markets. Additionally, the uncertainty that's created by states individually passing mandatory GMO labeling laws would be devastating to producers, as our supply chains are much too complex to meet the needs of 50 different states. So I start with that. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask, and I want to direct this one first to Mr. Jordan, because opponents of biotechnology have been raising questions about the safety of glyphosate herbicide with certain GM crops, notwithstanding its 40-year history of safe use, and the fact, by the way, that no regulatory agency in the world considers glyphosate to be a carcinogen. In April of this year, EPA issued a desk statement regarding glyphosate and the IARC conclusion. In this statement, EPA stated in part, and I quote, "In 2014, EPA reviewed over 55 epidemiological studies conducted on the possible cancer and non-cancer effects of glyphosate. Our review concluded that this body of research does not provide evidence to show that glyphosate causes cancer, and it does not warrant any change in EPA's cancer classification for glyphosate. This is the same conclusion reached in 2004 by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and affirmed this year by Germany's pesticide regulatory officials." That's the end of the quote. So I just want to ask you the question, can you confirm that this is the most recent public statement EPA has issued addressing the safety of glyphosate?
Yes, sir, that is the most recent statement that we've issued on that, and I helped write it with the input of the experts at EPA. We are currently reviewing the IARC report, and we expect by the end of this year, possibly sooner, to have another statement addressing that document.
You, in your testimony when discussing regulation of plant-incorporated protectants, or what you referred to as PIPs, that, quote, "Our decisions are based on the best available science. We operate with consistency and fairness in a transparent manner, and we collaborate fully with our regulator partners in the coordinated framework," end quote. And then you went on to say that the EPA believes we have a responsibility to convey to the public that our decisions are consistent, scientifically solid, and fully protective of human health and the environment. Based on the collaborative efforts of EPA, FDA, and USDA APHIS using sound science to ensure food safety, especially for foods derived from genetically engineered plants, do you believe consumers need mandatory labeling of foods produced from GMO plants?
Sir, I believe that the genetically engineered plants that we produce, that we have reviewed, do not pose any risk in the food supply. It's not EPA's purview to address labeling questions, but that lies with FDA.
Okay, and thank you for that nice segue there. But Dr. Main, you provide in your testimony the FDA is supportive of voluntary labeling that indicates whether foods have or have not been developed through genetic engineering, provided that such labeling is truthful, not misleading. You also provide in your testimony that, and I quote, "FDA's voluntary pre-market consultation process provides for a rigorous food safety evaluation of foods derived from genetically engineered plants. As a result of these pre-market consultations, we are confident that foods derived from GE plants in the U.S. marketplace today are as safe as their conventional counterparts," end quote. So if you're confident that foods derived from GE plants are just as safe as foods derived from conventional counterparts, Doesn't the whole idea that you put forward of labeling send a mixed message?
So if we were to require mandatory labeling, that would be a different interpretation. As I indicated previously, there is no basis for us to require labeling based upon a material difference in the products, and federal courts have upheld that position. We recognize consumers want to know this information, and that's why FDA has issued guidance on voluntary labeling procedures for industry. So mandatory labeling also has some enforcement challenges, and so it's not grounded in science or in the basis of our authority to require mandatory labeling.
I would like to continue that line of questioning, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired, so I'll perhaps get it on another round or submit some questions for the record.